Welcome back, everybody, to Tarot Journeys with Guy. How's everybody doing? We're going to look into UFOs today. Last week and the previous weeks following or before that, all of these UFO hearings have been coming out. And there's been a lot of disclosures and a lot of people talking. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to look into what's behind this UFO, UAP cover. And what are they covering up? What's real? What's not? Now, I talked about it yesterday, right? And how the deep state, they have these running operations going on. It's psychological warfare. And they've created false flags to ensnare people, right? To get people to volunteer for their system of control, their agenda. And so one of them is definitely the UFO piece, let's call it, right? And so it's kind of obvious, meanwhile, while the committee and this whistleblower, this Colonel Gersh or whatever his name is, no, he's not a colonel. Can't remember what he is. Maybe he's a captain or something, but it doesn't matter. He's not real. He has no real evidence. If people saw this hearing, it's all just words, right? But so meanwhile, while that was going on, the whole thing with Hunter Biden and President Biden, or so-called President Biden, has come out. And how dirty and corrupt these guys are, right? So that's kind of an obvious piece, right? There's an element in the deep state that doesn't want us to look at the Hunter Biden situation and the issue and the IRS tax blower that's basically blown the lid on the Bidens, right? So they put out this UFO piece to distract people. But it's also this thing where this is how they get money for their black projects. And they motivate around fear. One of the big things within US history that many of us, especially in this community, and I guess I don't know what you call it, the alternative community of the internet, right, have known about this sort of thing for a while, but the everyday people don't know around the history of NASA and the space program that it's linked with the end of World War II, and a lot of the main characters that helped bring NASA into being and the US Space Agency were Germans from World War II on the bad side, the bad guys. Some of them were pledged SS members, like Wernher von Braun, one of the godfathers of modern rocketeering. So this level of corruption and decrepitness and tyranny and just straight up evil has been inserted into our Western culture, right? That's one thing, right? So that throughout all of the history of the end of World War II, they've been covering this up and trying to distract people and say, oh, no, Wernher von Braun, he wasn't doing this to build weapons. He didn't agree with the bad Germans in World War II. He just went along to save his own skin, right? And that, maybe, but his mentor is a crazy dude, crazy SS guy, Dornberger. There's two of them, Oberst and Dornberger. Dornberger became the president of Bell Helicopter, and was also a very crucial part of developing the rocket systems, right? This guy was a general in the SS. So Operation Paperclip at the end of World War II, they brought over some people talk about how 70,000 to 35,000, depending on the numbers, but even 10,000 is too much. This is what we fought World War II for. And now look at what's going on in the world, right? So anyway, that's part of what has been coming out, what they've been trying to cover up, and what we're going to look into. So I've always had this kind of view that NASA, never a straight answer, right? They've got a lot more going on. These space agencies have got a lot more going on than what they're telling the public. And it just doesn't make sense with some of the stuff that they've been telling people, right? So this is what we're going to look into. What did they actually develop? What do they got flying around above our heads? Because I've always believed that what they're telling us, they're 30, 40 years advanced and ahead. or they're lying. So this is what we're going to look into. We're going to look into the nature of why this UFO piece is coming out now. What are they hiding? What elements of the secret space program is real? People have been talking about that for a long time. So we are going to look into that. And we are going to open up our cards, mystery cards that we had been opening the last 2 episodes. So we've got 2 more here, or 3 more. Obviously I can't count. Okay, so I don't know what these cards are. They were previously sealed. I bought them at a shop. Right? And so we've already opened up 6. So this will be our 3rd reading. And then so the next episode we'll open up the last 4. And then the episode after that, we're going to draw out a zodiac wheel and open up the last 2 as a part of like a full reading. Right? Okay, first card is the 3 of Pentacles. 3 of Pentacles. Now that's a cool card, right? You can actually see, it's very descriptive, this card. There's 3 key people that have come together to build this arch. Right? So that's a really important part of it. And in the material world. So like back in the medieval era, in the 12th century, after the First Crusade, and they brought knowledge from the ancient world. And one of them was this ability to build an arch. And this kind of peaked arch that we see in some of the main cathedrals, like in France and in Europe, right? Like Chartres Cathedral or Notre Dame of Paris, that kind of thing, right? And this was a very special task, right? So in a way, it kind of represents for us like education, leveling up, but also connecting with the right people, having the right people around for the right job, right? So that, but like it's almost like in a way we on this other side, the patriot side, the ones that are pushing back for freedom, a new archway is being built, or we're building one, right? This thing that we've had to do requires us to also build on to what has already been there, right? So yeah, that's an important one. It's a very spiritual card. Actually, I kind of see this as like an integration card, like the spiritual world and the material world integrating, because they're building an arch for a church, right? 3s represent creation, represent birth, represent spirit, represent the joy of, right? So it's like finding joy in our creations, finding joy in our connections, coming together with people to build on what we've already started, new things. Okay, here's our other cards. Knight of Wands. But this is a very creative card. Fire represents like not only the activation of will, but this also, it represents like our creative energy and a part of the spiritual side that brings on that creativity, right? So in many ways, our activation of will is taking place right now, whether we like it or not. Like it's huge, right? Some of us have to be courageous. Some of us have to be a bit braver. This is also seeking new territories, but this could also be a vacation. The Sun card, the Sun card, beautiful card, man. It really represents joy in many ways, but like the sun, this is what generates your life force. Get in touch with what really gives you that energy. Connecting with youth energy, connecting with our inner child, connecting with our children, right? In that sense, like if we have kids or whatever, right? Our families, but it's more like kind of getting into that playful energy again, like enjoying the summer. Oh, wow. Like, wow, we can actually do this. Yeah, we actually can, right? So that's a major arcana card. So this is kind of like one of these lessons that we have to learn throughout our lives. But fundamentally, we have gone through a shift, whether we like it or not. There is a massive shift. So how you conducted yourself, how you felt about certain things, what motivated you, what generated that life force, it's going to shift. It's going to look different now. We can't rely on certain things that come from the past. So It doesn't work, right? In some ways, some of us do need to take a break from some of this stuff, right? Like you've been focused on it and good work, right? Because this is what the pushback is. But we also need to have a break. You need to have a good time. You need to enjoy it. Some of you fought hard. You worked hard to get us here. Take that time and enjoy it, man. Please engage your vision. This is what's going to help save the situation. See, I don't fear this scenario that we're going through. I think things are going to turn through. I think it's going to come through. Okay, so now we're going to look into the UFO thing. UFOs, UAPs. Now, the government, the deep state, tried to change the label. So when I say UAP, that's kind of like a deep state label, unidentified aerial phenomenon. There's also unidentified underwater phenomenon as well, right? And so there is, and like, I mean, I get why they changed the classification, right? But I am going to refer to it as UFOs. I'm not going to use their language per se. A lot of what they've been telling us is a ruse. A lot of it is a cover-up, man. Like, it's crazy, right? I don't subscribe to a lot of viewpoints that people do subscribe to. Like, there's definitely something fishy with the moon landing. I do think that they landed on the moon, though. I don't think it's fully fake. And there's reasons why. I don't subscribe to flat Earth theory. That's, I think, another psyop, much similar to the UFO thing. Right? And I also don't necessarily subscribe to the ET narrative as well, in the way that it's being presented, especially like in this hearing that this guy's coming up saying that they have bodies. Okay, where's the proof, man? They've been telling us stuff for decades, right? And there's no proof. And it's like everything that's being pushed in this world, there's really no proof of any of this stuff. So that's one of the things, we need proof. And so if there's no proof, if it's just this guy talking, then yeah, that has to be taken with a grain of salt. There's been some really wild people that have come over the decades. Like there was one guy, Gary McKinnon, is this autistic computer genius that hacked into, I think it was the Department of Defense, and found information on what people call Solar Warden, which was a secret space program connected with the Navy. And he found lists of ships and crew members and mission prerogatives, all sorts of stuff. And then they took him to court for hacking, and he had to clear all this stuff up in court. And like, if you look into it, it's pretty wild, right? Like it kind of goes in line with what Reagan had said just before he left his presidency, basically saying that he's quoted as saying, I think it was after him talking with Gorbachev, talking about how the US had the ability to lift 300 personnel into low Earth orbit. At that time, NASA had 3 space shuttles. In order to put 300 people into space, that requires a lot of ships. That requires something else than what they were telling us. See, and that's one of those things. There's been many, many people that have come and gone, right? That some of them are true whistleblowers, and some of them are false flags. They're placed there, right? Like Operation Mockingbird. Just like agents, intelligence agents placed specifically to steer the worldview of the collective or people's perceptions. Okay, so let's get started. The UFO issue. What's the truth behind it? What's the cover up? So, I mean, 10 of Wands, like the guy, it's pretty obvious, right? Like he's hauling these sticks. It's a big haul, right? And it's a lot of work. It's kind of stressful. But when it's reversed, it's sort of like releasing the burden. What they're doing is actually releasing things in slow drips, right? Because what's above it is they're showing you this, but they still have this 9 of Wands. They have all of these other things sort of stacked that they're not going to show anybody. They're not going to tell you. In fact, they're going to make it appear as though those things don't exist at all. What we're looking at here is like being exposed to the public. It's like there's 10 scenarios, or there's 10 pieces of technology, or there's 10 people that are coming forward. I don't really know though, but it's like 10 things that they're purposely showing. Meanwhile, 9 of it is hidden. One of the stick, how this guy's holding the stick, one of the sticks is part of what they're beating us with. He's beating us with that stick. Like this card represents this guy building like a safety zone. Like it's his barricade, right? And so he's embattled. He's got bandages on and stuff, right? So in a way, I kind of take that, like they're using it as a weapon. They're using the very notion of a secret space program or technology that's hidden. They're using it against us. Part of that is probably the psychological operation that's behind it. Funny, the devil card in the past, right? So the devil card, especially like as a symbol, does represent lying, represents deception, right? This is the deceiver, the enemy. So in a way, it's sort of like like what I was saying at the beginning of the reading about how the Western Allies at the end of World War II brought all of these German scientists and engineers and officers, SS officers, to the United States, inserted them and hid it. The CIA is almost the infrastructure that was created from the OSS is almost entirely from the Eastern Front Intelligence Corps from Germany, devised by the SS, almost entirely. This is something they're not telling people, right? And it's the same thing with the space. It's all connected, right? So it's this deception right from the beginning, right? So, and I mean, you can look into this. A lot of people know this. The US, since the Cold War and the end of World War II, have operated off of a couple of different notions. One of them is plausible deniability and total dominance, supremacy. So they try to achieve absolute supremacy in a given theater and also employ plausible deniability for covering up, or also when they haven't achieved full supremacy. So basically they'll say, we have this technology when they haven't. Wow, like especially with these cards, you got the Queen of Swords there, right? When she's reversed, this is the worst human being to deal with in some ways, right? This is like a super manipulative liar, right? For the purposes of lies, of deception. So there you go. It's this, that kind of answers like, and we already know this, it's there to deceive us in some way. People are talking like, Operation Bluebeam, where they project massive holographic images across the sky and get people to believe that a UFO invasion is going to happen. They might pull something like this, but it's not real. So right from the beginning of this program, the space program, like what I'm saying, this level of deception was inserted. So nothing has been upfront. Okay, so like we were talking about the moon landing. One thing that I kind of really think is what they did is they shot, especially like Apollo 11, some of what they showed, like maybe none of what they showed is actually from the moon and is actually from a film set, right? Because that's what's come out, is that they, in the Gemini program, the first spacewalk, and I think it was John Glenn doing the spacewalk. Well, they had planned in a studio before he went into space. They shot him in a spacesuit doing the whole spacewalk in case it failed, in case they couldn't get the image. Right? So this is what we're dealing with. And we are going to draw more cards here after we kind of pick up what's going on here, because the cards are actually confirming what I had already said. It's more this running cover. The technology, it's not quite what people think. I don't really see anything here that sort of speaks of like extraterrestrials or like off-world technology, like how they say, like, because like one of the things that this guy's saying in this hearing is that they have this recovery program where they recover crashed crafts and then reintegrate that technology, figure it out and reintegrate the technology into society. Colonel Rosso wrote a book. He wrote a book about Roswell. I was about to go and grab the book, but famous book, right? He talked about that stuff. He wrote that in the 90s. This guy goes back to the 60s. He wrote it after he got retired, and then he got sued into oblivion. I even think that he was part of a cover-up. I don't know how much of that is truth, right? If there are off-worlders visiting the planet, which there probably are, they're not coming here in the conventional technology that we know of. It's not possible. So either the deep state know how to travel faster than light, which they may, via wormholes or whatever it is, stargates like people talk about, right? Or they just don't have that technology. And so if some highly advanced species is visiting here, it's more than likely not physically, right? It's not of the physical nature. It's going to be dimensional. It's going to be energetic in some way. But even that technology itself is not going to be understandable to us. Now, if you look at like the whole history of like, you know, abductees, contactees, the UFO thing, some of these people report how, yes, that this technology is of like a heightened nature, man. It's like spiritualized in some ways, right? And in order to like activate some of it, the person needs to be of a higher awareness level. We don't know, right? In some ways, the technology, what they're hiding in this recovery goes back to like the programs, the technology recovery programs from World War II. So yes, they have recovery programs, but just like right now in Ukraine, there are NATO people, there are US personnel on the ground, recovery teams trying to figure out what the Russian technology is doing. That's what it is. This is how they lie. See, one of the things too we've realized, and part of their manuals and everything, like disinformation works really well with a little bit of truth. In fact, the biggest lies are the ones that are most accepted. And some of the worst evil dudes that have been on the planet are quoted as saying that. And it is true. And that's what we're dealing with. Massive, massive cover up, man. The other thing too, right? Like Biden, what was it, last week or something? Information around JFK, the assassination of JFK was supposed to come out. His nephew out in the public talking about how the CIA and the Department of Defense killed his uncle, right? We've known this forever. So what does the Biden administration do? It says, no more information. We're locking it down forever. You can't see this information. Well, what does that tell us? Like, who are these people? Unbelievable, right? It's like, yeah, you took out a sitting president. It's very similar to what they did to Trump, except we're not living in the same era as the 60s. Everything is of a psychological nature. Like they're trying to assassinate his character. Okay, what else here? Yeah, people are going to be disappointed. It's not as fantastical as they'd like to think. There is some stuff. It's not so much about off the planet. It's more about how the planet works with other planetary bodies. This is kind of what the technology they've plugged into. Part of that PSYOP tech is also like a weather manipulation technology that's connected with directed energy weapons. They're all tied in. It's all part of a technology tree, right? And so when you start to like work on big systems, like the CERN is like a planetary system. That's what starts to happen. You start to work, but this is what they're accessing. They've got, so like a lot of stuff that's like in space flying around, there's nobody there. It's like all like drones and robots and stuff. I've always suspected that they're doing things to the sun, like they're beaming the sun and stuff. And like they've been studying it and they're trying to affect changes. They're trying to like terraform the Earth. They want to terraform Mars, right? It's insanity. Elon Musk, right? Prime example. Holy moly. I've never trusted this dude. I don't care how much you speak out. Like, I'm glad that he turned. But like, look what's happened now, like with X, the X app or whatever he's calling it, what Twitter has become, right? He is no different than what the World Economic Forum people are. He's trying to create his own thing, his own world coin, everything connected to an app. He's developing Neuralink, where he wants to sell you, just like how the Apple thing, except it's going to be in your head. How can that be trusted? Okay, let's see what else we can. So secret, right? This secret card. And then what was actually around that card? So this was the future. So even in the beginnings, people had like the good intention of, no, we need to like keep some of this secret to safeguard people. There's that aspect of it. But it's become malformed when she becomes reversed, just like the Queen of Swords, right? Where the original intent has been sort of dislodged. And that those secrets cover up many other secrets, right? And I mean, we're getting into like their occult, like the deep state's occult scenario, all of these different, like the cultic activity, these groups, what they do. And I'm not trying to freak people out per se, because I don't really think there's a lot of these people, but they're doing it. And it does tie into like their spiritual worldview ties into their technology programs. I've also, one thing I kind of see what's happened is these guys are attempting to turn the earth into their altar as they attempt to create a new God. This idea that man is God. No. These people are insane, right? But it's all tied in, and they have created this scenario where we're all unconsciously taking part in their ritual. The space program is part of it. Man, the lunar landing thing in the 60s, people, just like how they're glued to social media, were glued to the TV. We can see now how that shifts people's awareness, their perceptions, right? Okay, what else do we need to glean from that? What else do we need to know? What is the technology they're hiding? What is it that they're actually hiding? Are there extraterrestrials? Like, is Majestic 12 real? If people don't know what Majestic 12 is, go check that out, right? This recovery of ET bodies, things like that. Is that real? So this 8 of Cups is kind of an interesting thing. That's what's crossing it. So like, yeah, it's funny. I mean, this is what we've witnessed, right? Even before the pandemic, was this shadow war coming to the surface, how these deep state elements in the intelligence community started to fight amongst themselves. And this idea of like the black hat and the white hat and all this stuff, right? That's part of the scenario, right? It's like, it's hard to walk away from that kind of thinking. So even like people, like, because there are people that are on the inside that have been battling this. They're not so willing to lose their jobs and stuff, right? They do believe in their country. They do believe in standing up for the good in people, right? And they work in the military and they work in intelligence and everything, right, as well. So they are having a hard time walking away also of this sort of mentality, right? So it's like, in some ways, this is kind of like how an individual will unconsciously do certain things until they become conscious of it. This is kind of like what's happening with the collective field of consciousness. We're kind of letting go of this sort of warring state. That's the other thing too. It's like a perceived threat from outside as well. And I mean, we've known this. Anybody that's studied this stuff, they kind of wondered. The Eisenhower administration wondered whether we were going to be invaded by an alien armada. 1938, the War of the Worlds, Orson Welles radio thing freaked everybody out, right? That kind of thing, right? So, but this is kind of what they're dealing with. They perceive a threat outside, or they're creating a threat from outside. Oh, this creation of a external threat, a threat outside of our own bodies, right? Outside of ourselves, right? But in some ways that it might be based on reality too, right? Especially if you think back, like in 45, 46, 47. And how people thought back then, none of this stuff was on the surface, man. We thought we were fighting the good fight, right? We thought we lived in a society like in the States, things were still kind of on the up and up. People could believe, they could trust the government, sort of. But it started to shift then, right? That's when it actually started to fully shift, I think. It shifted before. And another marker is before World War I, right? And the formation of this latest phase of the Federal Reserve, right? And the whole medical establishment and everything, right? Okay, so that's that. We know this. We know they're hiding technology. We know it. Those that are in the know, we're already aware of it, right? It's some of the stuff that they're hiding. It's sort of like energy systems, like, you know, like how we plug into like this oil and gas thing and nuclear energy and stuff. They know about coal, like they know about fusion. They've developed it. And that's something that might actually start coming out in the near future, is this idea that we could all have like this fusion is the other splitting it. Fusion is bringing it together like the sun. But this is the kind of like, if this technology comes into fruition, this could solve all the energy problems. But we might see something like this, like an unsustainable version. Like they might, but in the long run, we're going to create like a sustainable energy system, right? But like fission systems, energy systems, right, is another thing. Something about quantum mechanics, quantum computing is another thing. But there's something that they do with this quantum technology, right? Propulsion, communication, medical, mental. So like the Neuralink stuff, right? So see, you kind of getting the idea, right? This is in what we know. So this is stuff that they've already brought out to the public. And I'm getting just a little bit more of an insight like beyond that, right? What's hidden to us is how much they're actually lying, let's just say it that way. I mean, people are going to speculate, man. As soon as they see that devil card, they're like, oh yeah, like blood drinking rituals and like, oh my God, they're all a bunch of Satanists and yeah, maybe, but also it's blown out of proportion. A lot of like their house of cards is built on lies, right? And I guess part of the technology that they're really hiding, or the reason behind it, is just like how this card talks about, like it's these two characters like from the book of Genesis after the fall, right? It's like humans chained to the block, chained to the physical world, right? And motivated through fear. And that's what the technology is there for, is to create that kind of scenario where we're tricked into like believing in this distorted version of the material world and being sort of enslaved to it, right? All of their motives right now is to pull money from us. It's like bleeding, taking blood from a stone, right? It just, man, they're building an infrastructure, right? Like we were talking about earlier with the Three of Pentacles, building a structure. So like that's kind of what they're doing. It's up to us to see what they're building, except in some ways they want us to believe that it's way more advanced than they actually have it. In fact, they're not as advanced. So, and I've kind of figured, I've been starting to figure this one out, right? Because man, we all grew up, but I grew up with this notion that anything that the military or whatever, the government starts telling you about technology, they're about 50 years ahead of us, 30 years ahead of us. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think their singularity concept is failing. They've maxed out their technology, the trees of technology that come from initializing certain ideas or techniques or whatever, right? They've maxed it. Like there's not really anywhere more for them to go. The only thing that they need to fulfill is their system of control. kind of does look like they've had some kind of interaction with off-worlders, actually, which is kind of funny. So they may have found something. Angel card, right? Kind of take that as an off-world sort of sign, right? So they might have found technology. They might have found architecture. See, and that's like Richard Hoagland, famous guy from the moon landing era, talked about the face on Mars a lot, right? He talked about that's what the cover up with the lunar landings is about, is that they saw all this technology on the moon, all this ancient artifacts and stuff that were from previous time, but like sort of like when we go see the ruins in Mexico or the pyramids or something, right? Like in Egypt, it's dead culture, right? And that's, yeah, they may have done that. I just keep getting this perception that they want us to believe that they're smarter than they are. And I'm not going to sit there and say, yeah, the deep state are idiots, because that's never underestimate the enemy. Never. They're not idiots. They kind of know what they're doing, right? But it's this kind of like what I was saying, plausible deniability, and, you know, creating like this dominance scenario, like supremacy over things, structures and things that they don't really understand that were even found on Earth. Yeah, they found stuff off other planets. They've brought it back. Things under the ocean they've discovered, right? There's some ocean things here. And that's what they're working on, is a communication system. There's like some kind of quantum communication system that they're working on, and they have made contact with something in another galaxy or something, or in another dimensional reality. But it's not like, it might be like a signature from a structure, or it might be like electromagnetic like a pulsar or something that's like planetary, but not like a being per se. And maybe that's what they're looking for with this kind of tech, is like trying, like, because this has been part of the process. Like, I mean, Carl Sagan and these guys, like SETI, the search for extraterrestrial life, right? That's still ongoing, right? And there is a concentrated effort to find other life forms out there, right? So this is kind of what they're doing, especially in they're monitoring the process, and they're monitoring their own people. And as they've been monitoring their own people, they've been implementing it with society. So as these space programs have grown and more and more people have become involved, they have taken what they've learned and implemented it in the rest. And we're seeing it with what we've been going through, right? With the lockdowns and just them trying to lock down everything, right? So it's funny in that those things link up. We've known that. Yeah, this extraterrestrial thing, there is some basis behind it, but whether they actually have bodies or not, that's like a whole other scenario. I think we're going to ask that, actually. I think we're going to ask about the ET thing. Is there ETs walking around amongst us? Do they know of them? Interesting. That's the card that fell out, right? Fell out of the deck. So the world reversed. So let's just draw some cards here to see what's going on. I like this kind of spread because I can read it in various ways, right? And there's no real rhyme and reason. I mean, there always is. Like when you're doing spreads, like this past, present, future thing really helps. Like past, present, future, past, present, future, right? Or you can look at it like spiritual realm, the material world, the foundations of it, right? There's various ways, but I like to read the cards that way, where I can kind of look at things various ways. So it looks like they found something that did crash, but it's much older, like much older. Like I don't know if this current like deep state or whatever had found it. Like it's almost like it was found like decades, if not hundreds of years before World War II, right? And they're using this part of it, like in a sense, right? The other thing too is that like this Roswell incident or whatever, like some of these UFO crashes, like especially from like the 40s, 50s, and the 60s, that kind of thing. A lot of it is humans flying it around, and we've known this, right? So but yet they have found something. They found artifacts. They found like, it's like almost like a body. So it's interesting. Alien, the movie Alien. All right, kind of an interesting thing. Like, it's funny, Alien kind of discloses what some of these guys believe, like in this creator builder race, right? Alien gets this distress call in the movie, and they go to this planet. It's they're like a mining outfit, like that are flying around like the galaxy, well, flying around like near the solar system, mining asteroids. They get this call, they go to this planet, and there's this crashed ship, and there's like a dead body on it. That's kind of what this looks like. It looks like there's something, but they found it on Earth. And this might be something like also partially underwater too. We've got this water thing, right? And so like, this is something like, it's like one of these things, like it was found a long time ago, whatever this is, an object or even a body part or something, and nobody has known what it is. And it's gone through different hands as like the politic has sort of taken place, right? And like things have shifted the political waters, right? And before the US was in control, it was the British Empire. And it's almost like it's British that found it. And it goes back to like, almost like Napoleonic era or something, right? It's like hundreds of years ago. Yeah, and it was found like something was found on a battlefield or something, right? So yeah, the secret was maintained. It was part of the secret that was like pushed forward, right? Some of these guys think they come from these, like the Nephilim. They think they're like, you know, like the sons of Cain or something, right? Which is just, to me, it's just ludicrous, like absolute ludicrous. You guys are insane if you think this. You need to read the Bible a little bit better too. In the 1890s, just like how with the UFOs in the 50s, the airship mystery was a kind of a thing. And people were seeing these airships flying around and utilizing a technology that nobody had ever heard of, kind of an anti-gravity, right? So there's a part of that too, that they keep passing this kind of information on. It's also the telephone game. I tell you red, you pass it on to the other person, it becomes bread. On to the next person, it becomes dead. Next person, it's Ed. Right? This is what's happened. So it's a bit of a telephone game about what this thing really is. But it looks like it's a couple of different objects, but it's like a piece of technology and possibly even like a body. So I guess what I'm getting from this world card now, what it's actually saying is that yes, there are beings here, but they're not necessarily of the physical. Hyperdimensional. The deep state are also creating their own version of an alternate organism. And they're going to birth something and say that it's alien, but it's them creating it. It's a chimera. See, like for the longest time, they thought that what they had was weaponry or something, like this tech. And part of it is, but what they've started to realize is that because our technology is kind of caught up to what this thing, like some of these pieces represent, that it's more to do with like energy systems, kind of like what I was talking about, right? And that the weaponry, that if they had weaponry, or if this represents a weaponry, it's not necessarily, it's more of an energy system. It could be used as a weapon, but it might not have been. And they've also have come to realize how old this stuff is. Like we're dealing with something that's very, very, very ancient. They don't want people to know about some of this stuff because it will give them hope, which is weird, right? It goes against the original motive. So there are people behind the scenes that are trying to get this stuff out. It's not these people that are in front of Congress, though. I'll tell you that right now. That guy is a full-on false flag, man. And people that are buying into that, yeah, it's kind of like the pandemic. You're buying into the wrong thing. The wool has been fully pulled over your eyes. I get it. I want things, it's like the X-Files. I want to believe. But that's what it is. They're preying upon people's sort of notion of they want to believe this stuff. They do have stuff flying around our heads that we're not aware of, but they're also going to make it look way like something that it's not, right? That's a big part of it. What they've been doing is studying shamanic tradition or medicine tradition from the ancient world, from tribal societies, and like sort of this idea of like doing ayahuasca or these plant mixtures to activate your consciousness. And they go on trips, they travel, and people report when they do this ayahuasca, which is it's a psychedelic agent. It's there to take you on a journey, but it's a healing thing as well, right? But people report they have contact with these beings, right? Well, this is what they've been trying to do. They've been trying to contact stuff. And what they keep running aground on is the fact that what they're dealing with is more of the psyche and energetic than the physical. But these guys are materialists. They don't want and some of these guys have been woken up. Like it's awakened them, but they don't know what to do with it. It's destroyed some of these people. Some of these, they just don't know what to deal with it, right? I keep seeing this card, and that to me is like a body. So there is some kind of physical body, but it's not from Roswell, or it's really old. Well, this goes into what I was saying. Yeah, well, because it's already come out. They've developed artificial wombs, right? Where and organic technology, like this idea of creating like an organic computer and stuff, right? This is what they're going to push is extraterrestrial. If there's contact, what they're having contact with is more energetic than physical, but there is some kind of contact. And this is where we get into this kind of the reptilian race or this energetic thing. Some people equate it to the dark side, right? There's all sorts of energetic realms to connect with, right? And this is kind of what these materialists, which is what these transhumanist, techno-scientists, evil darksiders are about. It's all about the physical for them. So they can't really grasp what's really taking place, right? But unfortunately, I don't think the stuff that people are talking about, like Billy Myers and things like that, I don't think it's real. I just don't. I think it's been part of a psychological operation, and people have been making a lot of money off of it for a long time. We could go on forever and ever. We could keep digging in, and we might dig in later for sure, because this is an area that fascinates me. I think it's good to bring awareness to it. So, and we're going to look further in. So whatever, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell me your story or whatever. Tell me if you disagree or whatever. It doesn't matter, right? I'm more curious on what people are actually vibing with, what's going on in the world, right? And we'll read about it later, maybe. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming here, taking part. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please leave a comment, share with people. Really, this is how all of us are going to really sort of move around, even if we just tell people what's going on, but share online. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.